Hey Martina, how are you?
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. And you're over in Greece at the moment, aren't you? On
Yes,
adventures.
somewhere in the middle of nowhere, up in North Greece.
And what have you been up to? I've seen there's been a bit of a few climbing adventures and things that kind of happening over there.
Yeah, so basically we've moved back into the van after taking a bit of a city break, and we've been traveling through North Greece, rock climbing basically, and slowly making our way back down to southern Greece, where we're going to be spending the season, basically winter season climbing.
Cool. And is that sort of because it's getting warmer? Well, it's getting colder, so it's warmer down south, right? So you're kind of migrating down that way. Is that the plan?
Yeah, I mean, down there, there's like more climbing, and it's, world class rock climbing. It's, if anyone watching or listening to this, they into climbing, then they will 100% know Leonidio and all of the area. It's, the one of the go-to places, meccas for climbing, especially the type of climbing that I love, which is tufa climbing.
Mhm.
And, it's just nice, place in Greece. You can snowboard on in winter and climb within the same weekend. You can do both, so that's where we're headed.
That's awesome. And have you been down there before?
Yeah, I've spent last season there as well, and then also 3 years ago when COVID hit, we were actually down there, and then we were on one of basically the islands where we also were doing climbing, and then we kind of got stuck there. I mean, there's worse places to be to get stuck on, so yeah, we're kind of regulars.
Nice. And yeah, because you've been snowboarding over in Greece before, haven't you? And I remember when we spoke, yeah, a while ago, and I just saw these like all these photos that you were posting up. I'm like, it's wild. It gets all right, huh? And when you think of Greece, you don't really think of, you know, you don't think of skiing or snowboarding, and
I mean, I'm Italian, kind of grew up in the Alps a little bit, so I'm used to the Alps. And I love skiing in Greece. It doesn't really compare, to the Alps, like the scene. However, it's still like it's pretty amazing because you've got this. The atmosphere is quite unique, as you
Mhm.
say. Like when you think about Greece, you don't really think about winter sports or skiing. You think
Yeah,
about the islands and crystal clear water. But they do have quite a lot of resorts. I think it's like 20, 15 or 25. I can't remember now. But
really?
there's more. There really is more resorts. There's one leaf, three leaf, something like that.
Yeah,
However, they do have quite a lot of really fun tree runs and a little bit of backcountry. And it's also super cheap because it's, I think in the week it's like 15 euros a day or something.
that's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, and it's just really fun. Like the people are, I think in the Alps, the vibe can be a little bit pretentious sometimes. Whereas in Greece, everyone's super friendly. It's just a very different vibe. And I think just the fact that you can do it for me is, it's amazing in the first
Yeah,
place.
that's cool. Sort of like Spain, right? With Sierra Nevada. Is it kind of similar to that? Would you say, or
Yeah, I think it would be kind of similar.
okay?
I think the difference is that in Spain, Sierra Nevada is right off the city.
Yeah.
So it's even a bit of a different vibe. Whereas in Greece, it's, you still have to drive 2 to 3 hours, and it's a bit more of a winter wonderland. Like you're driving into the ski resort and you've got all this amazing forest land, which is covered in, fresh snow. And last year we are so lucky. We had so much more snow than Europe had. So like
Yeah,
every day, was pow. So it was really good.
that's awesome. Cool. Well, I guess like I'd love to. I want to talk about the traveling side of things and working remotely, but before that, I mean, like you were saying you were growing up in Italy and you kind of got into skiing in the Alps over there. And like, did you study over there as well?
Well, yeah, so I grew up in Milan, but every winter and every summer I was in the Alps. I
Okay.
basically learned to ski before I could walk. And then at some point when I was 18, before I moved abroad, I went to the Alps for a little bit, just a few months. And I studied in Milan. But while I was studying, which I studied translation and interpreting, which is what I do today, But then I moved while I was studying. I moved first to Germany and then to Switzerland, I think. And then that's where I kind of started to, live abroad. And then I haven't
Yeah.
really been back for the past 14 years. And when I did go back for some family issues and I stayed for 3 years, I spent most of that time in the Alps. So that's kind of my second home.
Okay. And what kind of I guess why did you want to go and like live abroad? Like initially back then, would you say it was like when you went over to Switzerland, and what was kind of what was the pull?
Well, the pull was the fact that I was studying for this university, and it was a private university, and I had to pay for it myself. And in Italy, I was holding 3 jobs, and it was not enough
Yeah.
to pay for it. And the petrol to put in the car to get there. I was I think 21, and I woke up like stressed, and I was like, what am like I shouldn't be 21 and stressed about money like this. So I
Yeah.
made a decision. I wasn't supposed to be allowed to go, but I was like, I'm either going to stay here and not be able to pay for it, and I'm going to go abroad and just do whatever job which pays better than this. And so then it's when I went to Germany first and to Switzerland. Big struggle, especially in Switzerland, but I managed to get jobs in hospitality and pay it all off. And then I just kind of never really went back, basically.
Yeah. And whereabouts were you living over there?
In Germany, it was Munich, which is again close to the Alps, so that was quite good.
Yeah.
Still like a good, train ride away to get into the mountains. And then I was in Zurich, in Switzerland.
Okay. And then were you studying? So when you were doing translation, was that Italian to German or English or kind of all three?
Yeah, well, the thing is that in my high school, I studied German, German, English, and Spanish. So that's what I was doing. So in professional translation, you typically translate from whatever language into your native language only. So that's what I was doing.
Okay.
So that's how it started. Yeah.
And did you think like back then, like what you wanted to do with it, or you kind of, you know?
That's a funny thing because I didn't really think I really hated studying because it's something that is imposed on me. I didn't like it at all, so I didn't even think I would necessarily go ahead and do something. But then it just happened that my grandma's house was right next to this university, and she knew that I loved languages, and so she was like, "Hey, why don't you check this out?" And so I did, and I thought, "Why not?" So I ended up enrolling into it. Didn't really have a game plan or anything,
Mhm.
but languages has always been something that I could excel at without having to put that much effort into. And so it kind of became like my avenue. And then as I was working at the airport for the national airline, I got my first freelance translation client who was like a
Mhm.
passenger passing through. As
Yeah.
you can say, as you know, probably I chat quite a lot. So got first client, and then it kind of, slowly grew up from there.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, getting that first client and then sort of kind of doing it from there. I mean, like, were you like working in, say, for like a translation agency before freelancing, or did you kind of just build up and so after that first client try and get another one and grow from there?
Yeah, so basically, I didn't really know what I was doing. First few projects were a complete nightmare, because obviously, you don't really know how it works. So it was a learning curve,
Yeah.
um, and then just slowly taking it from there. First, maybe 3 years, I think 3 4 years, I was still like doing other stuff on the side, and then I think in 2013, because that was 2010, and then in 2013, I decided to go off to Southeast Asia, and kind of everything, like drop everything else that I was doing.
Yeah.
And then I had to make it work because otherwise I wouldn't be able to eat, basically. So really pushed for it and set up my website and and that was as a freelancer. And I didn't really have, I learned how to create websites, learned a bit about copywriting, all those different things. And then, but again, I didn't really have any previous background and that sort of thing. So kind of had to learn it as I went.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And then was that like learning like SEO and kind of everything around, I guess, finding clients, but then also, how did you manage that kind of like when you set up your own when you did your own website and were you just sort of like learning on the fly and kind of?
Yeah, I mean, at the time I wasn't really, because that was 2000 and I don't know what, 13 maybe, 14, yeah, 2013, 14. So at the time, I don't think there was even, between 2010 and 13, I would say there wasn't that much content that I could consume for translation professionals online. So I kind of had
Yeah,
to learn as I went. I wasn't really that into SEO. Plus, I mean, I didn't really know much about it at the time, but also uh, my website was supposed to be more of a like a little page that was supposed to back up my story and just present myself as a translator to agencies. So it was more
okay.
like a static kind of thing. And then of course when I went on to building the agency, then that's when it became like a more like a focal focus of the whole thing.
Yeah. And did you like ever think like, so then like not going back after 14 years or whatever it's been, like did you just sort of think when you were in Asia, was that I guess the point where you thought that, this is kind of traveling and working remotely is totally doable, and you don't have to be stuck in a cubicle or in an office to kind of to basically get your work done, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I was never really the type to go to it, like to sit in an office anyway, and
Yeah.
not have much freedom. So the only, all the jobs that I've done prior to that point were always, airport, airline, so a bit different, hospitality. So I never really like sat in a cubicle. I don't think I would do very well in that environment. So when I was just, I think my very first laptop in Southeast Asia that I could travel with was this really crappy tiny laptop which took like 2 minutes to perform any action.
Yeah.
And even then I was able to make it work and really push for it. And then I wasn't really, there wasn't never a time where I stopped and I thought, oh, can I be this like digital nomad, which at the time wasn't even a
Wasn't a
concept.
thing, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
just like kind of became hype after that. It was just a way that I was trying to combine everything, and I was really into it. And so I just, yeah, I just went on and enjoyed it, and I never really stopped to think, should I go and find a job? It was just a kind of the way that my life was unfolding, and I was pursuing it, and I just enjoyed doing that. So
Yeah. And do you reckon like it was the pressure that you were sort of putting on yourself to make it work, and kind of, you know, this is sort of what you set out to do and you're going to make it happen?
yeah, 100%. I mean, when you're out there, I was always very independent also growing up, but when you're out there on your own and you have your own, like you depend on yourself to, to have everything, to make life work, then
Yeah.
it's a more pressure than being maybe in the comfort of your home with your family around and friends. A bit different, I think. And I mean, I wouldn't recommend necessarily this to everyone. I would say it was a bit of an insane thing to do because I didn't have anything set aside. If I wouldn't like, if it would happen that I couldn't work for a month, or for whatever reason, whatever happened, I was
Yeah.
not in a good situation. And it was definitely tough. I definitely ended up in some situations where um made me grow a tough skin. But at the end of the day, that was good growth anyway. So
Yeah. What do you reckon some of the hardest things were?
I think for me, well, obviously setting up, finding the first clients was the regular, clients was definitely a little bit like the biggest hurdle at the beginning.
Yeah.
Um, Especially when you're 20, 21 years old, you don't really have a good grasp of, at least at the time, um with marketing. You didn't really have like stuff like LinkedIn to learn
Yeah.
how people write. So it was it wasn't easy to find the first people, but I will remember forever the first regular agency client that I got, because I was in Cambodia and I got this email, and I think it was 8 p.m. and everyone else around me was backpacking, and I'm like, I got the email, oh my god, and they wanted to work with me, so I just sat down and and that became my first regular clients for a few years.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. And then would they kind of give you like it would just be it would be different projects here and there, and then were you like sort of were you just working with them almost exclusively, or did you try and then get other agencies that you could work with?
No, I think I was always working with different agencies, which is where I realized that I didn't really enjoy all types of translations, because
Yeah.
um, basically every translation, every industry, let's put it that way, has got their own peculiarities. And so I would be an absolutely terrible, legal translator or medical translator. I know nothing about those things. I'm not interested in the slightest. And even when it comes to technical stuff, I don't know, manufacturing, absolutely nope. So I gradually ended up doing more marketing translation content, which is also part of what I studied.
Mhm.
And that kind of led me to specialize in a bit more, first in the software side of things, and then, of course, in the sports. But at the beginning, it was more like a mix of stuff,
Yeah.
which was quite interesting, I would say.
And how did like the action sports and kind of outdoor sports, what was like, what was like, when did you kind of think that this is sort of something that you wanted to, I guess, focus on and specialize and then almost combine that with work, right?
So in 2016, I decided to start working a bit more with clients directly rather than through agencies. And I set up, so because through marketing translation, I had specialized a bit more in software and software localization. So
Mhm.
anything, apps, website software, all that stuff, especially for companies called software as a service, right? So I started to set up some teams for different languages that I wouldn't cover. And then as that went on in time, at the end of 2018, I realized, because I'm a rock climber, I'm a snowboarder, I'm a skier, and I'm a wannabe kite surfer. So I'm spending a lot of my time looking at outdoor brands content, and I'm spending a lot of time buying the gear. And so as I'm
Yeah.
browsing, I'm like, oh, actually, a lot of this content for other brands, that they like translated content, like international multilingual content that outdoor brands put out, it's pretty terrible. It goes from being like the terminology is not correct, it's machine translated, or the writing is not good. And so I thought, okay, what's the deal here? Maybe there's something that I can do with my background and experience and expertise, and also my the fact that I am in the translation industry.
Yeah.
And so at the end of 2018, I think it was December, I decided to go to ISPO in January, and put a website together, like a one pager. Decided, like, let's go and test it out and see if it works. And so I did, and got the first client there. And then I started putting pools, like teams of action sports translators together. And that was kind of the inception of it.
Yeah.
Now it's grown like massive, like exponentially.
And it was like big brands as well that were getting the translation wrong. It wasn't just small companies. And
Yeah,
they're like, I mean, like you said, getting that terminology wrong, where it's almost a language within itself, right? And all the like colloquialisms of those different sports. Yeah, and then they just be, I don't know, I guess using people that didn't have any clue about the sports, or even machine learning, like you were saying, right?
yeah.
Um,
It's mainly the big brand because so what happens is that there is lots of different like layers and issues that happen. Is that one, there's not many people who are specialized in translation, and also so they have the technical know-how of how translation works, but
yeah,
also know the other industry. But also we know that the other industry is not like one thing. There's a lot of different sports. Cycling is like worlds apart from climbing, and vice
yeah,
versa, surfing and so on. So there's a lot of different areas, and it's really, really hard to find people who know what they're doing. And so a lot of the time brands work with generalist translation agencies who provide translation services in anything.
mhm,
But then the result is that it's not correct terminologically. It's unappealing because it doesn't really like capture the tone of voice of the brand. And then what happens is that us as the consumers, we go and buy that gear, and it can, it's wrong, and it's terrible. It's a terrible image for the brand.
yeah,
But also it can be bad when it comes to life-saving gear. if we're talking about climbing, we're talking
it can
about
be dangerous, right? If they're getting it wrong. And
yeah, it can be, anything from the grigri, like we use the grigri to climb. If that's instructions are translated wrongly, then somebody can potentially, I don't know, be in danger when they're using that device. So that's and then also what happens is that a lot of the time brands get frustrated, and rightly so. So they use their internal resources, like marketing managers, for example, in each country, to either do the translations or to review them. And then, of course, has other issues and implications. Like the marketing managers are not writing professionals. So, and also they take their time. They're supposed to be doing something else entirely. It's not part of the job description. And so they take their resources away from what they should be doing instead. And so it's just a mess in general.
So then going from ISPO and finding getting that first client, what did you pitch to them? Was that just like, we can do it in multiple languages, or did you just sort of set out in kind of like, we can translate it into Italian or German?
Yeah, I think I don't really remember the conversation that was had, but I think it was more about, having a chat and kind of presenting, not like in a pushy, salesy way, just like, hey, that's what we do. And at the beginning, it was more like, I thought of it as more like a collective of translators, but then I quickly realized that, these other brands really need a bit more than that. Like they need a full agency service. So the first company we worked with, we did translations from English into 4 languages, I think. And it was a big brand. So that immediately validated that, okay, let's put this together, and that's definitely going to work.
Yeah. And then how is it building up the agency, kind of going, I mean, now a couple of years, or like 3 years in, right? Almost 4 years. Like how is that kind of that first kind of initial, well, I guess finding the staff, finding the people, that must have been pretty tough, looking at all these different languages. And
yeah, I think so. Obviously it's a lot of fun because you're working with these companies that you buy gear from, that you have kind of a company crush on. You love watching their athletes sponsor content, consuming their content online. So it's a lot of fun, and absolutely love working with every single one of our clients. But obviously it's tough because, one, we have the standard agency growing pains that any agency in any industry would have. Then the translation agency specifically, it's harder, I would say, because for example, if you are dealing with monolingual content, for example, let's say that we are a content agency, it's much easier to see what sort of output the people that you work with are producing. And so it's much easier to, kind of streamline processes and workflows and kind of get it right very much quicker. And with design as well, the things that don't really depend very heavily on geographical location and language. With translation, when you're working with an obscure language, unless you have a team that you really, really trust, then it's quite hard to kind of gauge what the quality is. And so it takes a lot of steps. It involves a lot of people. And then there is the pain of being so niche. I always talk about how many benefits having a niche agency or like working in a niche market brings. However, there is also the other side of the coin, which is how do we find these people? Like when, you can't, as I said earlier, you can't take somebody who's an expert in, marketing translation for surfing brands and then put them on working on something that's completely different. Somebody who maybe does climbing, who knows nothing about surfing, and surfing has got a very specific terminology and lingo and culture, which is extremely different from climbing. So you have to have separate teams for each of those markets, those languages, and the sports. So now you can imagine if we work with a language like Finnish or I don't even know, Estonia or whatever. But let's take Finnish because it's an actual example that happened just recently. Then we need to find someone who is an expert, or really good at what they do, because we are aiming for the best standards that we can possibly provide to our clients. So really good at what they do. And in general, from our testing, let's say, we can see that there is a 2 to 5% of the people that come through our hiring funnel are actually up to those standards that we're trying to aim for. And then also they need to know all about the sports, the technicalities, and blah, blah, blah. So when it comes to those languages, do these people even exist? Where do we find them? Because then you run into the issue that how, for example, Asian, let's say Japanese professionals or translators, they don't hang out on LinkedIn that much, or they don't like to use the usual channels that we know for. So then you have to know where to go and find them, So it's a lot of stress. It's a lot of pressure, and especially we really work really hard to be the agency for outdoor brands, and so that means that we have to fill that gap and to deliver content that which is far better than anything that we're getting so far. So it's a lot of pressure, it's a lot of expectations, especially from me. So yeah, but it's good fun as well.
I mean, sort of dealing with those brands instead of kind of dealing with something that you're not really passionate about or interested in, it kind of makes it just makes it more fun to work with these companies, right? And how did the whole Protect Our Winters thing come about? Because you've been working with them, and how did that all start?
So actually, it's ISPO again. I think it was the first ISPO that I went to. I was listening to a talk by Pau. I didn't really know them before that, but I think I saw that Jeremy Jones was going to be on the panel. So I went and listened, and I was like, oh, that's cool, because obviously, they're doing the work that everyone needs to protect the environment and our winters, because otherwise we won't be able to enjoy it anymore. And so I thought, oh, that's interesting. And because it's an international organization, I think I heard the Austrian chapter talk, and then I knew that also in Italy, in the northeast of Italy, the South Tyrol, they're quite they were working together quite a lot. And then I thought, oh, maybe that's something that we can help with. So it started off with, I think it was me at the beginning, just helping with some translations for the Austrian chapter. Then I worked with the Swiss chapter, organizing the whole translation of the website and or marketing stuff from English into Italian for Switzerland. So I had a whole team working on the website, and then I co-founded the Italian chapter. So I'm currently involved with the Italian chapter. However, unfortunately, because I live outside of Italy, there is only so much that I can do with the help on the ground. So my main task, let's say, my main job description within the organization is to help when it comes to all multilingual content and translations.
Okay. Yeah, cool. And with sort of being traveling around like you have been, when did kind of climbing come into play? Is that something you've been doing for a while?
So climbing is actually something that I took up. I think I tried once bouldering in the Alps very randomly with a bunch of friends, but that was 10 years ago or more now, maybe 15 even. But then I had to go back to Italy in 2015 because my dad was involved in an accident. So I had to be in Italy, and it was a very stressful time because, I was abroad living my life, and then suddenly I'm stuck going to the hospital for 9 months. And I didn't really know how to cope with it, to deal with it. And there was this climbing gym, a very small climbing hall, 5 minutes away from where my mom lived. And so I would go there and spend 3-4 hours a day, every day in the gym. And it was therapeutic, it was okay, this is something where I can let my stress out, not think about things, which isn't necessarily a good way to deal with things. But at the time, I didn't really know how to deal with it. So it was really good. And I kind of really got hooked. I mean, climbing gets addictive quite quickly. And also, the way, especially I think at the beginning when the improvements are quite fast. And then I moved to, so I'm from Milan, but I really don't like it. So I think I resisted for 3 months. I'm not a city girl. I think I resisted for 3 months and then I was losing it. So I first moved to Finale Ligure, which is near Genova, more or less,
Yeah.
the coast, because there's like a big climbing outdoor area and big climbing community. And it was driving, I think it was like 1.5 hours from Milan, so I could come up and down quite quickly. And kind of just kept it up, and it was, just got into the community. And I think the climbing community is the best out of all the sports that I've done over the years. And then I met my partner, who was really like obsessed at the time, just like traveling in the van where I live now, kind of live. And we just, just joined him on adventures across Europe. And then we kind of, he was traveling with a friend for a year. And then after that, I kind of moved into the van with him. So now it's kind of what we do full time alongside working full time.
Yeah, that's cool. And then you can kind of, well, basically park up wherever you guys are, right? And then you can kind of, you can climb, you can work, obviously do meetings when you have to, and kind of have your life around what you enjoy doing instead of sort of escaping on weekends, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think at the beginning we were in the van pretty much full time for, I think, a year and a half, maybe. I don't even know anymore. And because I'm the company that I run is completely remote. We don't have an office. Everyone is, we encourage everyone to go and be whatever they want to be, do their pursuit of sports that they want to do, and just enjoy their life. So we are completely 100% remote. We're doing this call from the van. So that's like kind of the office as well right now.
Yeah.
But now we also have 5 pets. So it gets a bit tricky.
You got 5 now?
Yeah.
Yeah, the couple. I didn't know you had 5.
Rescuing is like, that's a downside of living in Greece, right? And Southern Europe in general. We keep rescuing animals. 3 cats and 2 dogs. So it's sometimes we take breaks. So for example, we were just in Bulgaria for 4 months, and now we're going to go down to Greece and we're renting an apartment. But having said that, being in Bulgaria, for example, for 4 months, we were on the edge of the city, so in the forest, which was amazing. But it was still like a city. There's still like the traffic, and it's a bit, when you want to go and take some time and just kind of like relax, you still have to make the effort to get out, find a place. And here, when I'm stressed, I look out the window, and usually we're parked up in these little remote areas where we climb. So look out the window, the mountains, the river. I can just go in and jump in the river. And to me, especially when I'm really stressed because I'm working 15 hours a day, it's like, for my mental health, it's amazing. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, that's cool. And how do you find it in the van? Do you kind of feel like, would you sometimes take breaks, and then you can kind of, you would rent somewhere occasionally, like for a week or 2, that kind of thing? Or have you guys been permanently in the van?
I mean, even though this is like a big van, it's got a lot of luxury as well. We've got, a big TV, we've got a lot of space. However, it does get a bit tight, especially when you're living, with your partner 24/7 and the pets. Sometimes it's nice to just like take a break, and so sometimes we do rent apartments once in a while, just randomly, just to kind of take a break. So yeah, I mean, everything when it's too much, it's too much, right? So I think in general, I really enjoyed the freedom, and also we're quite mindful of how much it's quite hard to, move it around because it's a big van. So we also do have a car. So we typically park the van for months/weeks because we slow travel. And then we try to be a bit more, mindful of moving this big truck.
Yeah. And then you're also kind of, I guess, thinking about what you actually need to have with you, right? So when you're stuck in a house or an apartment, you just accumulate all these things. And
oh yes, oh my god, I absolutely love that. At the end of any time that we are in an apartment and then we leave the apartment, I absolutely love that we get rid. We don't buy a lot of stuff anyway, because we know that at the end of the day it needs to fit in the van. But it's nice to see, even in 4 months, how much crap you accumulate without realizing there's all this stuff. And then we'd like do a big clear out, and you just live with what you need. Really, you don't over consume. You don't buy stuff that you don't actually need. And also, in the van we have to have all of our pet stuff, all of our office stuff, climbing equipment, which is a lot, snowboards, surfboards. What else? I think
all the toys. You got to have all the toys in there.
All the toys, exactly. So, we need to fit all that stuff in, and so
that's exciting.
And it's therapeutic, it's like a therapy. It's like, and also with the fact that you don't overconsume, it also, we are pretty much self-sufficient. The only thing that we depend on is fuel when we need to move the van, but we've got solar panels. We can watch, TV, like big, like Netflix on our big TV for, weeks, and be in the middle of nowhere for weeks. And the only thing we really depend on, is water, but we get it from the spring. So it's kind of like a very nice way to kind of also, how do you say, reduce your impact on the environment as well.
Yeah, nice. And how do you have Wi-Fi? Is there like a certain thing that you guys use for that?
Yeah, of course. I do a lot of meetings, stuck in meetings all day. So, and also I need to have these meetings and work oftentimes, every day, a lot of hours a day. And so even when we want to go climbing, I need to have that ability. So we have this, we invested in this modem, which is the best on the market at the time when we bought it, Netgear. And then also we have like a couple of marine antennas. Basically, even when you're in the most remote place where no one else gets the slightest amount of like network by at least 20 to 30 minutes, like you have to drive back 20 to 30 minutes to get any signal, we get like banging 4G and we can do, streaming, meetings, and all sorts. So, but now crazy. I know also, somebody told me just the other day that now, with this Starlink thing, I think it's like, 100 euros a month or something, and you can connect from anywhere, because obviously as long as the sky is visible, then you can connect from literally anywhere in the world. So that's something to look into.
Yeah. And what do you guys have coming up? So you're going to be heading down to South Greece later this year, and then have you kind of got any plans sort of after that, or I guess what you want to do with the agency as well?
Yeah, I mean, now we're going to go to Greece. We're going to spend winter here. I mean, we're in Greece already, but we're going to go down to the south of Greece, spending winter down there, climbing, snowboarding. There's also some kite surfing spots here, so something that we would like to also, pick up a little bit more again. And then after that, I am nowadays I'm resident in Portugal, so I should go back next summer, because I do spend a few months of the year there. So I am planning to come back to Portugal, spend some months there. And with the agency, what we're trying to do is just really keep on finding the talent. That's like our biggest challenge or pain point. It's really hard to find these people. So really streamline those processes of workflow and really finding the talent. And if not, come up with ideas on how to maybe train the people. So for us, what we realized that somebody can potentially be trained on how to write well and how to implement the feedback from the clients and understand, what marketing content should look like. And it's a long process. However, that should potentially easier and more attainable than actually getting somebody from outside the outdoor industry who's a really good writer, but know nothing about the sports that they are supposed to be writing about, because that 100% of the time it shows in the content. And
they just get found out, right? If they don't.
Yeah, it's just like really, it just shows. You can tell there is the passion isn't there, the knowledge isn't there. You can look up only so much online, right? Your research can take you only so far. So if you're not part of that culture, you're not part of the culture. And each sport has got its own culture, and it's really important for any type of content to reflect that. So we're looking into ways to really like step it up even more to what we've been doing until now. Over the past 3 years, we've grown to 3 like our team now has got 3 project manager, 1 vendor manager, plus, you know, a whole bunch of different professionals supporting the work that we do. But what we're looking to do now is to really step that up in the background and really make a difference in like the results that we can bring to our clients. And what that means eventually is to, you know, be the go-to translation provider for outdoor brands and action sports brands. So just keep on going that way, because it's great. You know, I'm at a crag, I'm climbing, and at the same time we are working on climbing content for 27 crags or the crag, and then we are translating content for I'm skiing and my team is skiing and enjoying the time on the slopes, and we are wearing our, you know, the jackets that we're pushing onto the new market. So that's really what we want to be.
That's cool. And then that's sort of working across everything from like apps to, you know, website content, and it's just across and marketing campaigns and all sorts of things, right?
Yeah, that's the other thing as well, because obviously each type of content has got different peculiarities as well. So not necessarily, like if somebody is a really good marketing translation specialist, that doesn't mean necessarily that they're good at like localization in terms of apps and website and software. So there is another layer of complexity there, which you know, you still have to. It's very different type of content. So for example, we work with Komoot. They are, I don't know if you know them, they're biking and cycling and hiking tracking app.
For like finding trails and things like that, right?
Exactly. So like that's one of the examples of this. We work with them, and the type of content happens in small strings. Like you don't have a lot of context, or you really have to kind of understand the user journey, how the user experience is going to be on the platform, kind of anticipate. And you really have to have some sort of background in UX writing, which is the art and the science of writing content for web, for user interfaces. Whereas in marketing content, it's, you know, it can span anywhere from newsletters to product descriptions, and it's just different fluctuation volumes. It's a lot. It's a lot of stuff. But that is the stuff that I think we can, you know, we invested in a really good list of resources, and we're just going to be investing more in that and really stepping it up even more.
Nice. Cool. And if people want to get in contact, or if they want to find out more, what's the best way of reaching out?
So if you want to get in touch with me, you know, personally for a chat, I think the best place would be over Instagram. Very creatively, I've named myself as Martina_translates. And what you find there is a lot of content about just climbing, you know, being out in nature, van lifing and stuff, and working remotely. If you want to know more about the agency, you can just Google the actionsportstranslator.com. Also very creative, but you know, it hits the mark. And yeah, I guess that like the two main avenues that you can find all of our contacts and my personal contacts as well.
Yeah, and then LinkedIn as well. You're pretty active. Pretty active on there.
I am. LinkedIn is just my name, which is Martina Russo. However, my name is very common in Italy, so good luck with that. You're probably going to struggle to find me there. But there is a LinkedIn link on the website as well, so you'll be able to find me there. And I mean, if you just Google me, Martina Russo Translator, you will find me, because I'm all over the place on Google as well. On LinkedIn, I do talk about a lot the both of my agencies, so both the action sports side of things, but also the software side of things. So yeah, but we do post cool stuff on the Action Sports Translator LinkedIn page. We're quite active there, so feel free to, you know, come in and check us out there.
And you can see where you're climbing and where you're going to be snowboarding and
exactly,
all the fun stuff you guys are getting up to. So
exactly. And if anyone is into, you know, snowboarding and just you know, climbing lesser known areas, that's especially if you love tufa climbing, that's kind of, you know, check out what I'm up to, because that's where that's what you're going to find on my Instagram and content in general.
Nice. Cool. Well, yeah, Martina, thanks so much for coming on. It's been awesome chatting, and yeah, definitely have to catch up when you're next in Portugal. Yeah, it makes me want to do some climbing. Actually, I got to try and get out to Sintra and do some bouldering.
Yeah, no, it's
Try
been
and
awesome.
learn.
Cool being on this your podcast and video series. And obviously, I really love what you're doing. So I'm really happy to be here alongside all these legends that you're interviewing all the time. So really, really happy. And yeah, let's definitely catch up when I'm back.
Awesome. Thanks, Martina.